Her name is Baek Do-hee, aged 29. When she arrived at the hotel with a man she met for the very first time. Even though the three letters that escaped his lips were not her name, but rather her best friend's name. Right now, the main characters of this deviation are the two of them. She passionately collided her lips with desire, like a woman who lives solely for the present moment, against the lips that gently warned her. A year later, despite the escape of Seoul's fine dust-filled air from her lungs, she smiled as if possessed. Weary of the morning traffic jams on her way to work and the eternal return of Mondays without fail. Today, her feelings couldn't be hurt like this. Why? Because she finally ascended to the role of team leader, her long-cherished dream now a reality. Upon entering the office, Kim Sebom, a second-year employee of the product planning team, greeted her with a smile. Do-hee asked Sebom, has she finalized the brand concept plan? As Sebom confidently affirmed the completion of the task within the deadline, Do-hee's cheekbones twitched. Her heart swelled with joy and emotion. What kind of place is this? It's been 7 years since she joined the company, rewarded with this position for her unwavering loyalty and tireless dedication. Yet, the predicament remains, she's merely an acting team leader, not a genuine one. Suddenly, Sebom whispers, Team leader Baek seems to be in a good mood today. Meanwhile, Ha Dong-hyun, a seasoned colleague of Do-hee's, boasted 2 years seniority yet found himself steadily advancing through the managerial ranks. As for Do-hee, her entry into the company was driven by an ambition that now saw her assuming the role of acting team leader, a fact that churned Ha Dong-hyun's stomach with resentment. Today, even Sebom's weary glance conveyed a silent reproach towards Dong-hyun, whose insecurities flared up predictably. Nevertheless, Dong-hyun couldn't contain his frustration, vocalizing his discontent with the company's promotion policies. Do-hee, unimpressed by his outburst, silently chastised his lack of tact. She understood the unwritten rules of swift advancement, adeptness in both work performance and social dynamics, including the art of playful banter. For Do-hee, ingratiating herself with her superiors was a second nature, a skill she had honed to perfection. But there was yet another secret to her success, a secret known only to her, a life that seemed to unfold in endless repetitions, defying the constraints of time. When Do-hee encountered director Yoo Hyun-rock, his words shattered her momentary joy and plunged her into disillusionment. The announcement that a new team leader would be appointed from outside felt like a bolt from the blue, leaving Do-hee momentarily speechless, her illusions crumbling around her. Stiffening in disbelief, she struggled to comprehend the sudden turn of events. Director Yoo's casual reassurance about her youth and future opportunities offered little solace to Do-hee, who had been feverish with anticipation since morning. Sensing her discomfort, she sought refuge in her third cup of coffee, downing it in a single shot before releasing a deep, heavy sigh. The abrupt gathering of all employees by Director Yoo heightened the tension, culminating in the introduction of the new team leader, Seo Jun-won. As Director Yoo singled out Do-hee as their team's ace, her confidence momentarily swelled. However, her expression darkened and shock overtook her as soon as she laid eyes on the man's face. Do-hee's shocked visage turned pale, as if she had encountered a ghost. In contrast, the man remained composed, his expression unchanged as he calmly greeted her. Every detail of his features seemed etched into Do-hee's memory, the black pupils set between long, slitted eyes, the chiseled nose, the tightly closed lips, and the sharp jawline below. Do-hee recognized this handsome man with the cold demeanor all too well. His deep voice, with its captivating charm, pierced her eardrums, evoking vivid memories of their passionate encounter a year ago, a night she would never forget. He was her partner in that scorching hot night, whispering seductively as he looked down at her, a memory that now resurfaced to haunt her amidst the stark reality of the present moment. It was Saturday, September 21, 2019, nearly a year ago, when Do-hee's tranquility was shattered by an urgent phone call from her friend Nuri. Nuri, the privileged daughter of a well-to-do family, found herself torn between familial expectations and her desire for freedom. She implored Do-hee to stand in for her on a blind date arranged by her mother, offering to cover Do-hee's meals for the next 20 days as a bribe. Reluctant at first, Do-hee eventually yielded to Nuri's persistent pleas, surrendering her golden weekend to the whims of fate. Do-hee made her way to the designated meeting place, the La Viet Hotel restaurant. Glancing at her watch upon arrival, she noted the tardiness of her blind date. As he finally entered, his first question caught her off guard, had she already placed an order? Do-hee shook her head, bemused by his peculiar approach as he silently perused the menu. It should have been utterly ordinary for any regular individual to inquire about his dining preferences or potential dietary restrictions. However, defying all expectations, he arrogantly took it upon himself to dictate the menu without so much as a courtesy inquiry. At long last, breaking the silence that hung in the air like a heavy blanket, his lips parted to utter the name, Seo Jun-won. With meticulous detail, he proceeded to reel off an exhaustive list of his personal statistics: age, towering height, solitary dwelling in a Uedo apartment, and a pristine medical record. Notably, he proudly proclaimed his role as the CMO of Hyojin F&B, a prestigious food company, and his current endeavor to spearhead a multi-brand business portfolio. Strangely, he admitted to possessing no hobbies or special interests, as if this were a badge of honor. Do-hee's initial impression of Seo Junwon was succinct and damning: "What an absolute imbecile." While undoubtedly peculiar, she saw fit to mirror his peculiar manner by introducing herself in a similarly matter-of-fact fashion. "Allow me to introduce Yun Nuri," she continued, presenting Nuri's vital statistics and professional status as a freelance reporter. As time trudged on in an increasingly surreal atmosphere, each successive dinner course served only to intensify the discomfort permeating the air. Breaking the ice, Do-hee ventured to comment that she supposed Junwon had no questions about her, given his silence. With unwavering composure, Junwon calmly affirmed that indeed, he had no questions. Do-hee wasted no time in bluntly stating her assumption that he harbored no interest in her whatsoever. Again, Junwon responded in the same composed manner, confirming that he had no interest in her at all. Sighing with resignation, Do-hee rose to her feet, questioning the purpose of their continued interaction if they had nothing to discuss. In that moment, Junwon beckoned her over and posed a rather unexpected question: "Yun Nuri, do you want to get married?" Caught off guard, Do-hee stared blankly for a moment before tentatively asking if he was proposing to her then and there. Junwon's cryptic response hinted that she could interpret it as such. Perplexed, Do-hee probed further, questioning if he had fallen in love with her at first sight, likening the situation to a scene straight out of a movie. Junwon promptly dismissed the notion, sending a chill down Do-hee's spine with his icy demeanor. Despite her mounting frustration, Do-hee pressed on, demanding to know the terms of this arrangement, criteria such as appearance, occupation, and background. Junwon's calm response pierced the tense air: "There's only one condition for marriage, a woman who wants nothing from me." Initially, Do-hee felt an overwhelming urge to punch him, but she managed to stifle it with a cough of laughter before questioning Junwon about whether he had ever loved someone in his life. As Junwon raised his head at her inquiry, Do-hee walked past him, her lips curling into a sardonic smile. "It's rather pitiful," she remarked, "humans have something called emotions, and no woman dreams of marrying someone with your mindset." Junwon maintained his cold demeanor as he questioned Yun Nuri about her beliefs in fate or romantic ideals. Do-hee chuckled softly, shaking her head in disbelief. "Even the dog next door wouldn't buy into such a ridiculous notion," she commented. "I don't trust anything but myself. I don't believe in fate, and I don't believe in love. Above all, I never trust people." Glancing at her wristwatch, Do-hee noted the time: 9 o'clock. "It's been exactly 2 hours, isn't that good?" she stated, preparing to leave. However, Junwon's demeanor suddenly shifted, a sly grin spreading across his face. Closing the distance between them, he suggested that she was similar to him. Leaning in close to her ear, he whispered, "Since you asked earlier if I had any questions, I've just started to become interested in you. Would you like to have a drink with me?" In the hushed atmosphere of the bar, Do-hee delved into a conversation about a friend who was so deeply entwined in love that she was willing to sacrifice everything, even her own life. The intensity of her friend's devotion sparked a contemplation within Do-hee, who found herself exploring her own emotions, particularly those intertwined with Seo Junwon. Despite the depth of her feelings for Junwon, Do-hee remained uncertain about the enigmatic force called love. Her musings led her back to a past ideal, a man from New York with whom she shared sporadic rendezvous, each encounter meticulously orchestrated to preserve the purity of their connection. When Junwon inquired about her relationship status, Do-hee responded with a wry humor, revealing that he had been nothing more than an idealized figure in her mind. She recounted the mundanity of her daily routine, punctuated by the ceaseless inquiries of others, highlighting the triviality of modern dating rituals. As she prepared to leave, Junwon's somber reflection on their shared solitude struck a chord within Do-hee. His admission of emotional disability resonated deeply, piercing through the facade she had carefully constructed around her own vulnerabilities. In that moment, Do-hee realized that her secrets, guarded with ferocity, were on the brink of exposure. It was a revelation she had long feared, a vulnerability she had sought to conceal even in death. Yet, in the presence of Junwon, her defenses crumbled, laying bare the raw truths of her heart. In a sudden rush of emotion, tears welled in Do-hee's eyes, cascading down her cheeks in silent streams. As a sleek black sedan glided to a stop nearby, the window rolled down to reveal Junwon's concerned gaze. His unexpected presence only intensified her anguish, and she found herself muttering through choked sobs, urging him to leave her be. But Junwon, moved by her distress, refused to heed her words. With a gentle yet firm grasp, he pulled her into a tight embrace, enveloping her in warmth and solace. Leaning in close, his breath hot against her ear, he confessed a newfound worry and vulnerability, prompting a tumultuous swirl of emotions within Do-hee's heart. His whispered words lingered in the air, weighing heavily on her soul. Despite the gravity of the moment, Do-hee managed a fleeting laugh, her voice tinged with bitter irony. If love was defined by regret, she reasoned, then perhaps their fleeting encounter should be confined to a single night, a temporary reprieve from the complexities of their intertwined emotions. In a moment of spontaneous impulse, Do-hee pulled the back of Junwon's neck and kissed him lightly. As soon as they entered the hotel room, the feeling of being together with Junwon was as beautiful as the flapping wings of a butterfly. After a while, Do-hee's heart skipped a beat. She was out of breath and suddenly her eyes were spinning. Her limbs shook from the shock as if something had been cut off. After a moment of darkness, she regained her dazed mind. Realizing Junwon disappeared from nowhere and Do-hee was lying alone in bed. Even the sense of pleasure that had engulfed her entire body had evaporated without a trace. Suddenly, the phone on the table rings. It's Nuri on the phone. And when she looks at the time and date she realizes, time went back to the morning of the day when she saw Junwon and now she returned to the past 8 hours before she met him. Surprisingly, this wasn't the first time Do-hee found herself caught in the grip of a bizarre phenomenon. The initial encounter occurred on her 7th birthday, a day intertwined with the magic of Christmas Eve. Her mother's cheerful birthday wishes filled her with joy as she eagerly accepted the invitation to spend the day at the amusement park with her family. Holding tightly to her parents' hands, Do-hee reveled in the excitement of the day, basking in the warmth of their love and laughter. But as the day drew to a close, a sense of unease began to creep over her. December 24th seemed to stretch on endlessly, repeating itself in an endless loop. Each day unfolded with eerie familiarity, her parents' actions and words echoing in perfect repetition. It wasn't until the 3rd day that Do-hee realized she was trapped in a never-ending cycle, locked in a perpetual December 24th. As the days blurred together, Do-hee grappled with a growing sense of isolation and fear. Each repetition of the day only served to heighten her anxiety, leaving her feeling increasingly isolated and alone. After enduring countless iterations of December 24th, she finally broke free from the cycle, ushering in the arrival of December 25th. Since that fateful experience, Do-hee has found herself ensnared in similar time loops 2 or 3 times a month. Living with the burden of her secret, she navigates each day with a sense of trepidation, never knowing when the next loop will begin or end. Do-hee's heart raced as she finally answered the phone, feeling as though she were possessed by some unseen force. On the other end, Nuri's urgent voice spilled out, relaying the same request as before, to go on a blind date in her place. Through the repetitive time loops, Do-hee had learned the intricacies of navigating these strange occurrences. To break free from the cycle, one had to play along with the predetermined events, pretending ignorance to avoid disrupting fate. In the past, the day had looped endlessly, a punishment for deviating from the preordained path. But now, Do-hee faced a choice: either meet Seo Junwon again and continue the cycle as before, or diverge from the expected course of events. Choosing the latter, Do-hee declined Nuri's request under the guise of work commitments, effectively erasing Junwon from her life. As she received a text from Nuri, recounting her encounter with the mysterious man, Do-hee couldn't shake the lingering question: did Junwon pose the same marriage proposal to Nuri as he had to her? The thought gnawed at her, lingering like a shadow in her mind. After reliving September 21st 5 times over, the day finally drew to a close. With each repetition, Do-hee's resolve hardened, determined to break free from the endless cycle and forge her own path forward. In her relentless pursuit of success, Do-hee raced forward with unwavering determination, seeking to bury the memories of that elusive day that vanished like a fleeting dream. Yet, even her professional aspirations crumbled beneath the weight of betrayal, as she was unexpectedly stripped of the newly acquired team leader position, usurped by an outsider, none other than Seo Junwon. As she rode the lift, the tension thickened as she found herself face to face with Junwon, the awkwardness palpable in the confined space. However, the awkward encounter took an unexpected turn as another woman named Ayan abruptly joined them. While the elevator ascended, Do-hee's mind raced, momentarily distracted by the task she had assigned Ayan the previous day. Anxious to ensure its completion, she queried Ayan about the status of the order, receiving a reassuring nod in response. Upon reaching the 14th floor, Do-hee made a swift exit from the lift, intending to put the encounter behind her. Yet, her attempt to escape was thwarted as Junwon intercepted her, issuing directives to organize the data he had requested prior to commencing work. As Do-hee navigated her way to her workplace, the buzz of gossip among her juniors about the new team leader, Junwon, echoed in her ears. With a firm hand, she quelled their chatter, reminding them of their responsibilities and warning of consequences for any further distractions. In the midst of the chaos, Do-hee couldn't shake the nagging sense of madness that seemed to grip her amidst the resurgence of Junwon's presence. Yet, she steeled herself with the reminder that Junwon would likely remain oblivious to her existence, unaware of their shared past due to the peculiar nature of the time loop that erased memories of previous iterations. After meticulously compiling her project data, Do-hee presented the file to Junwon, expecting acknowledgement for her efforts. However, to her dismay, Junwon's response was far from what she anticipated. With a tone laced with disappointment, he criticized the presentation, labeling it as terrible. Seeking clarification, she queried him about the shortcomings he identified. Junwon's response was blunt and unyielding: the data was inconsistent, disorganized, and inefficient. In defense of her methods, Do-hee explained that the team had adhered to these practices without issue in the past. However, Junwon swiftly dismissed her explanation, questioning why the company had chosen an outsider over an insider like herself for the team leader position. With a stern gaze, Junwon emphasized that the company's expectations extended beyond maintaining the status quo. They sought innovation and reform, qualities that were paramount for driving progress and staying ahead in a competitive landscape. Despite being cliché, these principles were fundamental to meeting the company's aspirations and achieving success. Seated on a bench in the tranquil solitude of the company park, Do-hee found solace in the sweet comfort of chocolates, a temporary reprieve from the frustrations that plagued her. As she savored each indulgent bite, her thoughts turned to the curious phenomenon of the time loop that had once ensnared her. Reflecting on the peculiar blessing that the time loop bestowed upon her, Do-hee couldn't help but view it as a unique opportunity rather than a curse. Each repetition of the day offered her the chance to rectify past mistakes and alter the course of her fate. Recalling pivotal moments like the college entrance exam and job interviews, where she had seized the opportunity to improve and excel, she recognized the transformative power of second chances. Despite her current setbacks, Do-hee harbored a quiet optimism, buoyed by the belief that she held the reins of her destiny. The decision she made 1 year ago, to abstain from meeting Seo Junwon again, was a testament to her resolve to chart her own path, free from the sway of trivial distractions. Yet, even as she fortified her spirit with these affirmations, the unexpected appearance of Junwon behind her sent a jolt of surprise through her veins. Startled by his sudden presence, Do-hee couldn't help but wonder about the enigmatic figure before her. With a light-hearted grin, Junwon addressed her, his voice breaking the silence of the park. Do-hee, he called out, his tone playful and curious, what brings you here, all alone?